The metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform and promises to be the next frontier for human experiences on the internet. Into the Metaverse covers companies, technologies, and trends that are bringing these promises to life. Join creator and host Jonathan Ross-Friedman, founder and CEO of Super Social, as he interviews the brilliant minds that are building, shaping, and investing in the Metaverse.
Welcome to Into the Metaverse. I'm Yon, and joining me today is Tian Lim, VP of Product at Roblox, focused on creators. Tian is a gaming and technology industry leader with a wealth of experience. His prior roles include software engineer and game system and designer at Nintendo, software design engineer and director of development at Xbox, senior vice president of product engineering at Sony Entertainment, CTO at Hulu, and most recently, before Roblox, he served as the VP of Engineering, UX, and Product Management at Google Play. Tian, this is quite a list. We're going to talk about some of that. Really delighted to have you on the podcast finally, Tian.
I'm super excited we finally got to make this happen. Thank you for having me.
Oh, right. So jumping straight into my favorite first question that I really like to ask every guest, and I had the fortune of kind of having so many amazing minds on the podcast with the hope of somehow creating some form of a consensus around what is the metaverse. And so my first question to you, with all of these amazing experiences and now at Roblox, how do you as Tian define the metaverse?
Yeah, I knew this was coming because I looked back at some of your other episodes, and I had to think about it. And I'm going to go a little bit more meta. I think the metaverse has always been fundamentally about your digital life. So you roll back time. It started with BBSs, MUDs, Usenet. It evolved into the web, then the mobile web and app ecosystem. And honestly, when I went to Google Play throughout my years there, I kind of came to that personal conclusion, and I think that the mobile app web ecosystem was the current incarnation or a incarnation of the metaverse, right? I can bank on the website or on the app or the brick and mortar, and maybe one day someone will build a 3D immersive version of that as well. I can communicate on Messenger, on text, or here on this app, or in Roblox, or in Horizons. I can join rich communities on Reddit, on Roblox, or elsewhere, right? So to me, it's always this projection of your digital life.
So you are now in a place where, to a large extent, the metaverse is being manifested potentially every day, although in the little small expanding enclave that is Roblox. As VP of Product on the creator, what is the role entail and what are kind of your core responsibilities?
So let me maybe roll back and pop the stack up a bit, right? So Roblox's vision is fundamentally to connect 1 billion people with optimism and civility, and that's amazing. I think one thing that I maybe missed out on my description of what your digital life is that it's actually this new medium for connection, period, right? And I think Roblox is now a really exciting instantiation of the 3D immersive instantiation of that digital life. If you want to connect 1 billion people, I don't think any one person or company can figure that out. I'm sure you can reach billions of people, and we had it at Google, but we weren't really connecting them together, right? So I think that in order for Roblox to achieve its vision of connecting 1 billion people, we're probably not going to be the ones to do it. It's going to be the creator community. They understand their niche community niches better than we do. They understand what kind of play, what kind of connection they want to manifest, and we at Creator want to make sure that they have the tools in order to do that. And that's why it starts with Roblox's vision of connecting 1 billion people with optimism and civility. And in order to help achieve that, we want to make sure that anyone can create anything anywhere. So that's the broad strokes of what we're trying to do at Creator.
And I mean, you worked in all of these phenomenal companies. You mentioned Google. Hulu was a very early entrant into streaming, and some of the other companies you mentioned, like Sony. What was it about where Roblox was at the particular time you joined that got you really excited about spending potentially the next 5 to 10 years of your life working on it?
Yeah, I think if you take a step back and look at the high order bits of my career, I've always ended up being in platforms. So at Nintendo, we were building the platform, the Nintendo GameCube. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. It was a really small team building the operating system, and most of us were, pretty new to the business. And one of the key things that, as a product manager, you want to do is really understand the customer. And so we started building really deep connections with the development community. And this is, the late 90s. The game developers back then, I don't know if you remember what they're like, but they're these grizzled console veterans who grew up hacking the NES and the SNES and the PlayStation, squeezing every cycle out of those machines. And part of my job at Nintendo was actually starting the community, because I realized that actually it'd be great if we had Usenet style news groups to really interact closely with the developer community. And as I learned about the Roblox job and the rich developer community and just how radically different it was, that was one really big thing that excited me. The other thing that excited me the most about Roblox, and it took me a long while to get here, I grew up in what I consider the golden age era of gaming. Ultima 7 is a core memory. It was the first time I think people opened their eyes up to what was possible in a game-like immersive world that simulated so many different aspects of the real world. And I think that excited and planted the seed of, one day someone's going to build an immersive environment that simulates enough of the real world to makes it completely intuitive and easy to create, because you're following all the same metaphors that you're used to in the real world. And over the years, it took me a while, but I kind of finally realized that actually Roblox is the only company that's really trying to do that, and do that, the way that I would imagine trying to do it as an engineer, which is really trying to build up primitives, simulate the real world in a pretty fundamental way. This is why, like, for example, just recently we're launching aerodynamics, so that, if your kid wanted to build a paper airplane and toss it, it would behave as you'd expect. So I think once I've kind of realized that, and it took me a long time to realize that, I got super excited about Roblox as being the right place to build the building blocks for 3D immersive metaverses.
It's interesting because when I have a chance of onboarding and hiring people into Super Social who come from outside the Roblox platform, one of the things I tell them is, one of the things that is really unique about Roblox is that you could be a 15-year-old teenager who have an idea on a Friday, you prototype it on a Saturday, and on Sunday you put it out there on the Roblox platform for people to play with and test and try. And that sort of really takes people by surprise. They're like, wait, really? It actually, I'm like, not only really, but it happens all the time. And some of those games actually accidentally become these massive games that people love to play for years on the Roblox platform. And I think that's something that is really underestimated about the Roblox platform. And I want to hear about your perspective, knowing about Roblox for a long time. And I think that perspective is how much Roblox has really demystified or democratized the tools of creation and putting them in the hands of hundreds of thousands and millions of young people around the world, and actually empowering almost like a new generation of creators in a gaming industry and beyond. I wonder, because you've been in platforms before, how much of that is, you believe, is a fundamental or instrumental component in what Roblox is enabling really in the future of creativity online?
The massive leap in my mind is, from personally as an engineer, when I stopped thinking about Roblox as either an experience platform or a games platform, and I started thinking about it like an operating system. It's the operating system for 3D immersive metaverses. And if you think about traditional operating systems, you've got core primitives like threads, processes, and so forth. In Roblox, the core primitive is a 100-person multiplayer sandbox with real-time simulated physics. So immediately, anyone, even today, right now, I could fire up Studio, instantiate one of these primitives, and immediately, within minutes, have 50 of my closest friends jump in and start interacting. That's how simple it is. That's how radically different it is versus when you think about what it might have taken to build a multiplayer game, even on the Unity or Unreal today. There's a lot of stuff that has to be stood up. for that to happen. Backend, multiplayer servers, matchmaking, all those components. So that's just one example of a core primitive that just radically makes creation that much simpler. I think the other thing, you touched on it, but coming from the mobile ecosystem at Google Play most recently, I think people underestimate just how quickly you can turn the crank on Roblox. You literally could launch a game today, listen to feedback from your players, or just dive into the game and listen to the players and talk to them, get feedback, code up some changes, and immediately redeploy it. Right? And you could do that, tens of times a day if you really wanted to. And that level of iteration just doesn't exist anywhere else except maybe the web. And personally, what I've seen as someone who loves games is I've seen gameplay evolve so much faster on Roblox than anywhere else I've seen. Roblox is almost like this primordial soup and melting pot of crazy genre mashups, constantly changing and evolving far faster. And we have genres on Roblox that I don't yet think I've seen in other AAA or AA titles. So that's.
I think that explains a lot why so many new users come into the Roblox platform, or even people again who come from off platform to join studios on Roblox who look at the games, and I'm like, wait, what do I do here? Because I don't think anyone has the mental model that a Roblox user has, where they are kind of used to all these meshes and all kind of these combinatorial gameplay modes that you go into the game and you're like, wait, like what's the fatui like? Because, well, the fatui has its own life on Roblox games. And, I think what's really interesting here, and I want to tie that into the work that you guys are doing with regards to the creator enablement on the Roblox platform. I think what's really unique is how much underappreciated the creativity, I believe, of what developers are creating on the Roblox platform in terms of newness that may or may not actually inform other entertainment mediums outside of the Roblox platform. But I'm curious, with the sort of underappreciated success factor of Roblox being the incredible developer community, for you as the person who leads, product development as a platform on the creator side, how do you see the creator enablement evolving on the Roblox platform in the future? And what do you think are the 2 or 3 main components that should be at the forefront of creator evolution on Roblox?
There's a lot to unpack in that question there. I'll first start off with talking about the creator community, because I'm not sure your audience is fully plugged in. I'm still pretty new to the company, so I'm still learning all this stuff. I'm learning just how different this community is, how super passionate they are. They've clearly grown up with a completely different relationship to the platform and the people behind the platform versus the grizzled console developers that I was talking about earlier. And they are just an incredible font of creativity and gameplay, super unique community. In my very quick 8 months here, I've been talking to many creators. I've talked to many of them who started when the platform started back in 2008 or 2010, literally grew up in and around the platform. If you think about any kind of relationship that spans decades, it can get pretty complicated. A lot can happen, a lot can change, attitudes change, the technology is evolving. And I think so it is with Roblox. And I think that's why for both me and my engineering partner, Nick Torno, who's also relatively new, we're trying to learn what kind of relationship we need to be building and sustaining to keep that community strong, this community that stayed with us, and ensure that it's still a welcoming place for new creators as well, right? So when we talk about creation by anything, anywhere, by anyone, we want to maintain the community that's stuck with us and be welcoming to, potentially AA, AAA studios, as well as new kids coming onto the platform. And that's going to be really hard. It's a very, very broad set of constituents to keep happy. And, it's going to be bumpy, but also super exciting. I don't think there's a melting pot quite like this anywhere else in any of the competing platforms. So that's a long-winded way of saying I want to make it possible for anyone to come to the platform with their creativity and achieve their creative vision as quickly as possible, whether it's an 8-year-old learning how to code for the first time or learning not to code, or studios like yourselves building scale businesses.
And I think what I want to double click on is something you just said at the end, which was that melting pot of all sort of shapes and sizes and complexity of developers and creators. And I think one of the things that I'm very curious about when I think about the Roblox platform is the Roblox platform as an economy and as a place for people to not only make games or experiences, but also make a living. And obviously over the past few years, we've seen the enormous growth of the developer payout that is being distributed to creators on the platform. I think Dave Bazuki shared earlier, I think a few weeks ago, that Roblox expects approximately $800 million in 2023 to be distributed to creators. Now, obviously, that is being distributed across developers of games, studios, individuals that create UGC items on the marketplace, brands that are activating, and so on and so forth. And I think Roblox is also taking a step at providing more revenue opportunities for developers, right? With immersive ads being added, engagement revenue and payout being introduced a couple of years ago. How do you think about what are really the prospects for developers, especially in a melting pot like Roblox, to truly be in a place where developers can not only build things, but also make a living? And I'm not necessarily talking about the big, large studios or companies that actually become substantial businesses already on the Roblox platform. I'm talking about the other 80%, right? The 20-year-old girl from, California that built a game, or, the 18-year-old in potentially Lagos, Nigeria, that is creating UGC items for the marketplace. How much of Roblox do you think is really about enabling those people to ultimately make a living also of the platform in the long term?
I'll share my personal KPI that I've mentally been trying to march towards. And this was true even when I was at Google Play, and truer even now as I come to Roblox. As a platform, what I want to accomplish is maximizing the number of people who are earning a living wage on the platform. And that's not something you can really measure, because people are all over the planet. They have different sized teams that I don't have visibility into. And to your point, the level of revenue I need to get to earn to be sustainable in different countries is going to be radically different across the planet. But that's my personal KPI. That's what I want to accomplish. So there are a few things that we're doing, right? We're obviously making creation super easy for anyone. Anyone can start off with no upfront costs. We're giving them almost instantaneous access to a global audience, right? I mean, there's 66-ish million daily active users. And from anywhere in the world, if you have access to a desktop computer, you can publish to all of them and potentially get discovered. And to your point, we've built enough of an economy that there are opportunities for success through multiple ways, whether that's through advertising, through selling UGC items, or even premium payouts upfront to enter the experiences. And I think maybe one thing that we haven't collectively with the community yet investigated is, what are the super creative melting pot business models that we haven't even considered yet? And I'm really excited to know what else could be possible there. I think you guys probably know a bit more about that than I do.
Yeah, I think my first company I started over 10 years ago was called Kano Computing, and we used the Raspberry Pi to build a computer that anyone can build and code themselves and create all kind of applications with coding. And I think it was clear to me back then and that technology is useless if we don't really find a way to put it in the hands of majority of the world population and turning that into a force of creation and a force of wealth generation, especially in a world where creativity is now something that anyone can pursue. I think Roblox, in my mind, is really the first company that essentially mainstreamed initially video game creation, but that has been on the back of also accidentally being the largest platform in the world to learn to code. Think about it, right? Roblox, in order to build a game, you need to learn to code in Lua, then you need to make the game, then you can build a business, but it starts by learning to code. And so in my mind, Roblox has also been a democratized platform for anyone to learn to code, at least in Lua, and turn those skills into something that you can actually make. Obviously, with AI, and I know Roblox is pursuing a bunch of different initiatives related to generative AI, this is going to be even more accessible. And, we're working on some projects in collaboration with you guys that are going to make that even more accessible from a game creation as well. And so I'm so bullish about putting power of creation in the hands of people and then let them create the magic. And I think one thing that I find admirable about Roblox, not only as a person who operates on the platform with a business, but also as a spectator from outside, is your continued persistence in treating Roblox as a egalitarian platform that really a 12-year-old and a 100 people studio has exactly the same access to the tools, the capabilities, and the opportunities to build. Do you envision that approach and philosophy as a platform is going to continue into the future? And the reason I'm asking is because as Roblox become bigger, more important platform, it already is in its category the largest platform in the world. There is no bigger platform than Roblox in community-created, shared 3D experiences. As Roblox continues to get even bigger and getting closer to 1 billion people that are on the platform, do you think that it's realistic to assume that Roblox can continue to have that egalitarian approach? Or do you envision a world where there are going to have to be some compromises around how do you really serve all of these constituencies in the future?
That's a really deep question. My initial response would be yes. And the way that we're going to do it is we're actually going to recede further and further into the core primitives, right? So as I said, I think that connecting 1 billion people is not going to happen by things that we do. It's going to be in the ways that we empower the community to find ways to connect those 1 billion people. And so I think we're going to be, focusing more and more on the core things that the creator community needs to build both the tools, the services, the full experiences in order to reach that. So, one way that we think about it is, we talk about this quite openly internally, is like, I think we'd be super thrilled if someone built a better studio than we did, using the primitives that, we need to provide. We haven't yet exposed everything that we need to, and we're working towards that. But that's an example of us focusing on the primitives and giving the community more and more power and tools. So, for example, studio, serves a certain class of creator. We are probably not going to be able to build all the tools and plugins needed to support the super rich creator ecosystem that will reach 1 billion people, right? So we got to give the community a lot more capabilities and tools. And that's the way that I think that we will maintain our egalitarian approach.
So that leads me to, I want to switch gears and talk a bit more about the work that I know has been something you guys really, really deeply care about. You recently launched this really fantastic and transparent overview of the platform's product and tech roadmap. And I know this is not something new that Roblox has always been providing visibility into tech roadmap. But now you guys kind of took that step forward, and in a recent announcement that you and Nick and also Manuel and Dan have really shared kind of the evolution of the creator platform and visibility you guys are giving to the product and the tech roadmap. What's really important about it in the context of what we just described, right? Inspiring that global, massive creator community. And how does this new evolution of the visibility you're providing fits into the overall transparency and connection that Roblox seeks to create as a company with the developer community?
Yeah, and I think the roadmap really addresses something that we talked about earlier in the conversation about the relationship that we need to maintain with the community. It's going to be complicated, tumultuous, but all relationships need to be built on transparency and accountability, trust, and mutual empathy. And so I think that the community felt like they weren't being heard, they didn't have visibility, and we needed to address that. And so Nick and I pushed hard to and organized people across Roblox to help us put together the deepest and most forward-looking version of the roadmap we could. And obviously, there's lots of things we can't necessarily talk about, but as much as possible, we just wanted to make sure that we were holding up our end of the bargain in terms of being transparent. And we'll be holding ourselves accountable. We've got a post teed up soon where we'll talk about the things that we did do and things that, well, actually ran some hiccups here, so these may get delayed. But we just hope that, by beginning this conversation and really just walking the walk in terms of being transparent and accountable, we can begin to really build a stronger foundation for the relationship moving forward.
Now, I know that obviously Super Social and other folks are working with brands on the platform, and it is clearly an interesting piece of the business today, but nonetheless small and nascent, right? And I like to, when I talk to a lot of people about Roblox, and especially people in the public markets or something, and they're like, yeah, these brands are coming in, and I'm like, guys, like, I understand the excitement around brands, and it's really great that brands are coming to the Roblox platform. I think there's now more than 200 brands that have come into the Roblox platform. We work with a bunch of amazing brands. But at the end of the day, I also remind them that Roblox fundamentally is a community-driven platform. It was powered by community, and it will continue to be instrumental as long as communities and creators and developers feel like this is the place for them to build next-generation 3D experiences. Having said that, brands obviously play an important role from a commercial standpoint for Roblox, which is now a publicly traded company, and people are constantly trying to find signals about how brands are going to activate on the Roblox platform and what it means for the future of the community and the platform. How does brand, as a cluster of stakeholder on the platform, fit in to the prism that you guys have from a product standpoint?
So maybe the first thing I would say is you said you started off that segment by saying it's a small part of business. And that may be true from our perspective, but from the creator's perspective, I've talked to many creators who are making, a huge percentage of their take home from these brand partnerships. So I think it's super impactful to the creator community, and it's a powerful source of liquidity for creators as they seek to grow their businesses on the platform. So it's small now, but high impact, I think, to many critical studios and creators. I'm not an expert. I've only been at Roblox 8 months. Actually, I want to turn it around on you. You tell me, I want to learn. What are those opportunities for those brands? What are you hearing from the brands that have worked with you?
Yeah, no, thank you. I wasn't ready for that, but I'll take it on. Yeah, we're definitely one of those companies where brand partnerships serve as a really important revenue generator for us. We started by building original IP, which we still do, but brands became a very important part of our business over the past 2 years, and we're grateful for that. And I think it only shows how much has really evolved on a platform that only 4 or 5 years ago, very few brands would have thought about coming in. And I think some of the key opportunities that we're seeing today on the Roblox platform is really brands fundamentally wanting to be relevant. At a basic level, brands seek relevancy with Gen Alpha, Gen Z, who are really the majority of the audience on the Roblox platform today. And I think it starts by just being relevant and building these relationships. The second thing that brands are looking for is really to be developing what I think of as meaningful relationship, engaged relationship with these communities, right? And that is to say, once I become relevant, how do we sustain that relevancy over time? And then the third piece, which I really think is still very raw and early, but I think will evolve in importance over time, is how do you do that and doing it in a sustainable manner economically? And I think there is now multiple avenues for brands to come into the platform, which also provides diverse revenue opportunities for creators and developers, all the way from launching a virtual collection in the marketplace, launching a small shop, creating a bespoke world. Let's call it a big bespoke world, like some of the things that Super Social has created. The immersive ads now provide a very low-hanging fruit opportunity to be visible on the platform. And I think what's really happening now, which I think is interesting, and what I'm excited about helping to unlock, is how can brands themselves ultimately become part of the creator community? And I think that is going to be a really interesting trajectory over the next 2 to 3 years, where also as part of the overall vision of Roblox of the creation everywhere and by anyone, I am curious about what some of the efforts that even a company like Super Social is going to take on in order to provide more opportunities for many more brands. We said 200 brands. How do we get to a place where 20,000 brands are coming into the Roblox platform over the next few years? And that's where I think it really becomes an even more interesting integrated conversation of how brands don't feel like they're visitors on the Roblox platform, but they're actually part of the fabric of the community.
I am reminded of certain fast food chains' social media presence as being a great example of like how to integrate deeply into the community and fabric of a community, like the Wendy's social channel, amazing. Yeah, I'd be amazed to see what brands can do to become more Roblox native or 3D immersive native versus simply becoming destinations. Yeah.
I want to switch gear and talk a bit about some other technological trends that we're seeing, and I'm curious about how that informs the roadmap of the creator platform for you guys. And I'm going to throw them out there because obviously they're very buzzy today, but I'm also curious genuinely on how, from a creation standpoint, do you think about it fundamentally as an integrated part of creation everywhere by anyone in the next 3 to 5 years? So first and foremost, generative AI or AI as a whole, which I'd love to hear your kind of POV on that. And I know Roblox has kind of started to dab into that and have announced a few things, which I'm sure are a tip of the iceberg of how the organization thinks about it for the future. So that's one thing I'd love to hear your POV on. And then the other thing, the trend that is a bit more controversial, and I'm not talking about crypto, but I am talking about this magical world that everyone talks about and no one seems to understand what on earth it means, which is interoperability. And what I mean by that is the vision of the metaverse by a lot of people, and not just because Neil Stephenson wrote about it in such form in Snow Crash, but really the vision is that the metaverse is going to be an interoperable open network where I can truly own and carry my identity and my digital assets with me from one place to another. And I think blockchain has evolved as potentially a technology that can enable that to some extent. And so I'd love to hear your POV without sharing any confidential information, but really how you and or Roblox thinks about the role of AI and the role of interoperability / blockchain as an enabling tech. And what does that mean for potentially where Roblox might be heading in the future?
Sure. I'll take the Gen AI one. That was obviously very, very buzzy. In some ways, we almost think it's orthogonal. There are already experiences that integrated ChatGPT today, which was kind of eye-opening for us and super exciting. Like the fact that some creator out there already had the bright idea of making calls out to ChatGPT and integrating some gameplay mechanics around that. That was amazing to us. We've obviously shipped 2 AI-related features with AI-assisted coding and material gen. At RDC, we'll be showing a bit more about what we can do. I think we're on the bleeding edge of really applying Gen AI and conversational AI in particular. And I think it's because we have the right starting conditions. We have, like I said, we're as an operating system for 3D immersive metaverses. We have a core primitive of a physically simulated multiplayer environment. And that is just super rich stuff for conversational AI to go engage with and have predictability about what can or will work, what's going to happen if I add a tree here, that sort of thing. So stay tuned. We've got a lot coming. And I think what that's going to do is, A, it will make it easier for more people to create. But B, it's going to accelerate creation for the sophisticated creators, right? It's going to be a tool for them to quickly prototype, iterate, and then refine with their craft. And we're super excited to see where that will go. So I think that's Gen AI. On Interrupt, blockchain, a few things. So obviously, I had to pay a lot of attention to the state of Web3 when I was at Google, and I think they recently shipped some of the policies around NFTs and Web3 that we were working on. I think first off, I would never want to be in a position of stifling innovation in any one field. So I think, we should be looking for innovation wherever it comes from. I think when it comes to being able to rapidly iterate on your economy and to rapidly make changes to adjust to how a billion people are going to be using your platform, I think you need a little more flexibility. And I think, you kind of see this in how some of the early white papers around some of the economies for some of those PDE games, they realized they had to keep revving their economies. And I think that the lack of flexibility, probably hurts. And so that's why I kind of like the approach that we're taking at Roblox, where we're able to maintain optionality, keep iterating on the economy, make sure we get it to a good place and a sustainable place. Because I think just like the real world, economies are really complicated, especially once you add in the creativity of the user base and the creator base and so on and so forth. So I think that flexibility is super important. And it's not to say that at some point someone may not use blockchain technology more extensively to power that sort of thing. But I think in the short term, we need a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and I think it was encouraging to see even the experiment that is now have been rolled out with the limited UGC, right, and enabling some form of economic behavior of an NFT without calling it an NFT, right, which is meaning you can resell and the original creator continues to generate revenue. As a non-maximalist of blockchain, one of the things that I like to mention to people is I don't know if the entire internet and metaverse is going to be user-owned, quote unquote, because I don't even know what that necessarily means, that it's user-owned. We have a user-owned platform today where you own certain elements of the platform, but you're not governing the platform, right? And so I don't know if the metaverse is scalable in that notion where it needs to be user-owned and user-governed through a DAO and all of these interesting concepts. Is it innovative and different? 100%. Is that the path to go necessarily? I don't know, right? I like to say people are smart. They will vote with their legs and they will go wherever they feel like this is where the future is heading. But I do think that even within what some people will call, quote unquote, closed platforms like Roblox, I think there's a lot of room for innovation with regards to economy and to the actual ownership that people have and what do they do with the ownership of the assets they have. But it does make sense that it happens in bigger, larger platforms like Roblox, which is likely not what all platforms are going to be, because just like the internet showed us in the second wave with Facebook and so on and so forth, there aren't going to be many large-scale platforms happening. There's typically 2 or 3 large ones, and maybe there is a couple of additional ones that are in far 4th or 5th place. Do you think that will change the dynamics of how it might play out in the long term of how creator platforms evolve? And where do people want to create?
I don't love the word platform because it's a bit ambiguous. I mean, because as you know, all platforms are layered and you're building higher level abstractions on top of other platforms. And then at some point, your abstraction becomes a platform as well.
Everyone is building on someone else's platform also.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So I think what I love about Roblox is that we're a platform that other people have built different kinds of platforms on, right? I think you guys are building some interesting stuff. I'm always inspired by the retro studio experience on Roblox. Like someone just went and recreated the old Roblox studio experience. And like that was mind blowing, and that's another mini platform in the making. So I think that if you build the right primitives, you can allow lots of different kinds of platforms to flourish. I just realized I didn't answer your interrupt question, and I think the interesting thing that within the it's hard for me to call Roblox closed because I feel like we take a very open approach to things. But we give creators a lot of options as to whether or not something moves between different experiences, right? And I think in the future we announced the ability to publish out of an experience to your inventory, and one day we'll be able to publish it to the Metaverse marketplace. And all of a sudden now you'll have more and more capabilities that can be brought across different experiences. And I think we're going to allow the creators to kind of figure out like what's the right level of interop that actually makes sense, right? And today, as you know, there are experiences that decide, I'm going to control what the avatar looks like. I'm going to control what accessories are available. So I've defined the constraints for my universe, but someone else might choose completely differently. And I think that level of flexibility is what we need to be providing so that the creative community can figure out the right way to evolve it.
No, and look, I think that terminology aside, platform, closed, open, I think a lot of people have different opinions, right? I think at the end of the day, within the Roblox platform, there's definitely room to maneuver for creators. You've mentioned the Roblox platform to an extent is already an interoperable metaverse. You can carry items and identity with you from one place to another. You can create interoperable experiences with even shared currency and stuff like that that are still happening. Maybe a better word than a platform would be an ecosystem, the Roblox ecosystem. So I think what you're saying definitely makes sense. It's really a question of what lens people are looking into it, right? And if someone wants to define Roblox as a platform that is closed, they'll just define Roblox as a platform that is closed. But I like to tell people also, and as I've mentioned earlier, is that everyone builds on someone else's platform. You guys are also dependent on the Android ecosystem and on the iOS ecosystem because you're building on those platforms. And Roblox has a major install base with mobile and tablet users. I think 70 or 75% of Roblox users access Roblox on mobile and tablet every day around the world, which is incredible. And hopefully more devices in the future. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how within those devices are everything. A lot of people talk today about games that are multi-platform. They run on all devices, on all ecosystems. And in a way, you guys have been gradually building an ecosystem that runs on all devices. You've just launched on MetaQuest. Everyone is anticipating you guys to launch on PlayStation. Obviously, the dream is you'll be on Nintendo Switch in the future as well. And of course, the Vision Pro is down the line into the future, a device that people will expect Roblox to be on as well. And so being a multi-platform or a platform agnostic, essentially, a device agnostic in ecosystem, I think is a massive advantage in a world where it takes so much to build for each one of these ecosystems. So I think that's another point that is worthwhile to mention. Switching gears to maybe kind of the last point I wanted to ask you today, which is what's the thing you're most excited about for the next 12 months?
Oof. Well, I can't wait for RDC because I think we'll be revealing a lot more of what's driving our excitement over here. Let me go meta. One of the great things about Roblox is, it is an extremely long-term company. It thinks long-term all the time. It does not back away from unsolved computer science problems. It charges headlong into it. And I think some of those breakthroughs are going to start trickling out over the next 12 months. It's super exciting. This is, probably one of the most innovative companies I've ever worked for.
And it's going to be your first RDC, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I had my first last year and it's pretty incredible. So first one in person last year. So it's going to be amazing. Tian, thank you so much. I've had such a great time talking about your role, your job, your history, Roblox, and where it's going. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Into the Metaverse. We hope you learned a lot and explored new aspects of the Metaverse.